Hello. Um, I'll probably start in a bit, maybe in about a minute or two. I want to see if this chat works because it's saying unable to connect to chat. Please try again later, but maybe it's working. Um, yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. And if people come in, people come in. And if you're watching the replay, you're watching the replay. My name is Brenda, and I am one of the co-creators um, of Beyond the Studio. And you met Argentina last week, or perhaps you already know us, or you've been on some of our adventures, or just following some of the content that we've been sharing with you. Um, yeah, so today we're going to get to talking about meditation and specifically 3 ways that it can assist your daily life. And before we get to kind of those 3 topics or those 3 things that tips that I want to share with you all, um, I want us to just think or take a moment to think of like, why did you choose to click the link, or why did you choose to attend today? Are you experiencing an obstacle in your meditation practice? Are you struggling with starting a meditation practice? I'd love to just for you to think personally for you why you decided to show up today. And if you feel comfortable, I'd love to see some of your responses on the chat. If you're on the replay, you can also comment your response in the comments. Um, and this will also just help me navigate the conversation a bit more. But of course, there's always a plan if you don't feel comfortable sharing. Um, so yeah, just thinking, why did you decide to attend our mini workshop today? A big part of what we're creating or trying to do here with Beyond the Studio is to get to these why questions, or to answer some of those answers personally. Why breath work? Why meditation? Why yoga? Why a certain pose? Why a certain practice? And the more clear that we can get with those whys, or those questions, those inquiries, um, the more effortless that this practice can start to come into our daily life, or the more that these practices can actually be part of our daily life. And so we're just really encouraging those conversations so that we can reap the benefits day to day, and not perhaps um, be constricted by just, one class or going to a class. And that's also another big theme that you may be seeing from us, from Beyond the Studio, is this like 8 parts of a yoga practice, right? We're really trying to show that the practice is beyond this physical exercise, really. That's kind of becoming a trend right now, which is beautiful. I mean, that's how I got into the practice, was um, feeling this physical exertion. Um, or determination. But the more that we can also see that there's this big, beautiful practice that has these specific 8 parts, the more that we can start to see it as a way of life. So that's kind of our mission here with Beyond the Studio. If you're super curious about the 8 parts of a yoga practice, we are setting a virtual course that you can sign up for. It's going to be launching next year, at the beginning of next year. So we have a waitlist going on. If you are curious about that, we highly encourage you to join us, to join that course. Okay, so getting through my notes here. Let's talk a little bit about meditation. And let's talk a little bit about how we can use meditation, or how meditation assists our daily life, right? So we may already know that meditation might be helpful. We may already know that meditation is good for us from the things that we're reading, but like specifically, like, how is this going to assist our daily life, right? So kind of the first one that I want to share or invite is we already learned that specific technique last week with Argentina, or the last previous video with Argentina, which was the breath. And that the breath, just focusing on the breath, right, is um, perhaps the most approachable way to begin to start a meditation practice or to understand meditation. That's the reason we're sharing it, or we're choosing that one. But be mindful that there's about 80 different styles of meditation, 80 different techniques in meditation. So this is one approach that we are sharing that we find is much more accessible, approachable, um, and just an entry point that's easy for everyone. Perhaps not easy to enter, but that doesn't mean that it's easy to do, right? Argentina explained that it is actually probably one of the harder techniques to do. Um, and so, kind of with that thought, of using the breath as as our meditation technique, as you start to kind of observe the breath in a meditation practice, you might start to notice kind of all these thoughts, or you might start to notice that there are a lot of thoughts in there. And that goes on to my tip number two, or second way that meditation assists our daily life, is that meditation is gonna almost uncover, or open up this area of your mind that you realize there's a lot of thoughts, or a lot of emotions, or just a bigger experience in there that is always happening. It's not that when we come down to meditation, all of a sudden, um, we get all the thoughts. The thoughts are always running in there. We just have different techniques or things that we do to avoid them, right? We might sit down to watch TV and we don't really notice the thoughts, or we might um, just play music so that there's not a lot of thoughts or sounds in there. But the thoughts are always in there. We have about 70,000 thoughts per day, or so my teacher tells me. um, and what happens in meditation is that we become aware or observant of the thoughts, of patterns of thoughts. We might become aware of negative thoughts. We might become aware of self harming thoughts, and we might become aware of good thoughts, happy thoughts, content thoughts. And when we become aware of the thoughts, the technique in meditation then is to go back to the breath, right? You see the thoughts, there's all these thoughts, reoccurring thoughts, same thoughts, then you go back to the breath. And that's kind of just the practice of breath, thought, breath, thought, breath, thought. It's kind of um that's just the work. We're not trying to delete the thoughts or erase the thoughts or stop the thoughts. We're just encouraging like a pause with the breath, so that in the pauses we can be more aware, or in the pauses we can be less reactive. In the pauses we can see what our habitual thoughts are. So that in itself is helpful in our day to day. If we can see what our thoughts or behavior are going to be before we go out and react or say something to somebody else in our daily life, that is the beauty of a meditation practice, of a sitting down meditation practice. So we use the sitting down meditation practice to then be able to go out into the world and use very similar techniques or observations or awareness, and interact with people with that muscle, I guess, or with that awareness, with that mindfulness. Um, so that's number two. Just want to make sure that I kind of got everything down in that one. I think that that's probably the biggest one of how meditation assists us in our daily life, um, is knowing that the thoughts are always there. We're not trying to zero out the thoughts. We're not trying to not have thoughts. We're trying to just be not just, but we're trying to be observant, aware, and in that observation and in that awareness, we can use that in other settings to then how we react or how we speak. Um, yes, that's number two. And I guess let's go into number three. I think this is a that kind of segues into number three of when we're aware of the thoughts and when we practice our meditation, we can then use other techniques to support us. And I guess what I mean by that is, let's say, for example, I'm sitting in meditation and I'm, trying to hold my breath or trying to go back to my breath technique, just focusing the inhales and exhales. And I'm noticing that the thoughts that want to keep popping in are negative, self-harming, self-doubt, and there's just all this kind of negative pattern. And I can make a quick little mental note that, okay, interesting, this week of mine is reoccurring with these thoughts, with these negative or self-doubt thoughts. And so then I can use another technique in another style, another setting to perhaps practice gratitude or practice compassion for myself or invite like a journaling practice of what might be going well in my life. So, knowing or observing what our thoughts are in our meditation practice can then invite other techniques into our life, into our practices, to then be able to create perhaps a new thought form, a new pathway, a new viewpoint, um, a new experience. And that can be really beneficial to be able to see that these thoughts that we may be having can be supported with another technique. In our life, that can look something like an experience that we're having in a relationship, a conversation might not be going the way that we want, but we can support it and we can enhance it, if you want to say that, with other techniques. We can use these practices as metaphors to live a more mindful life. And a more mindful life does not mean that it's more happier. A more mindful life does not mean that it's um, better. A more mindful life just means that we're aware, we have the tools of awareness to choose how we want to react, how we want to live in that reaction, or how we want to live our life. Um, and so I hope that kind of explains or supports your meditation practice. These three ways that meditation can support your daily life, right? It kind of looks kind of funny that we come to sit in meditation, we're alone, we're in silence, eyes closed, looks like we're not doing anything. So how, in that view, it almost looks like, how does this support your daily life? It looks like it doesn't. You're not interacting with anybody. Um, you're not talking to anybody. You're just completely inward. But when we start to understand that it's more of this muscle we're building this muscle of mindfulness or awareness or um, inward observation, then we can take that into our daily life. And our daily life starts to be the practice, or not the practice, but our daily life starts to be what we're learning inside of our sit down meditation practices. So hopefully that um, makes a little bit of sense. If there's any questions that are coming up for you, I invite you to please share in the chat. Or if there's any obstacles that you're still facing in your meditation, please feel free to share in the chat or also email us afterwards. You can always email us and we'll always try to respond. Um, and yeah, just to quickly run through again the three ways that meditation can assist your daily life is number one is the breath. The breath can be with you at any moment. It's the beginning of kind of a meditation practice or the approach that we're sharing with you. And the breath, one breath can literally just make you present. You can be in a conversation, you can be at a party, you can be at home alone. The breath can really be a way to find that one kind of glimpse of meditation. And number two is when we come down to sit to meditation, we might be more aware of the thoughts because there's no other distractions like TV, there's no other distractions like music, there's no other distractions of any other sorts of our phone or scrolling. And so we come down to sit in meditation and we're hyper aware of the thoughts. And that's totally normal. And that's all of us. We're not sitting down to meditate to zero out our thoughts or to have no thoughts. We're sitting down to meditate to create those pauses. And in those pauses, we can also be slightly more aware of what the thought patterns might be, what our habit thoughts are. Are we on a loop of some thought pattern? Are we on a negative loop? Are we on a self-doubt loop? Are we on a content or happy loop? And that's all fine. But what we can do, which is number three, what else we can do with a meditation practice is use other techniques that may support us in those when we have more knowledge or awareness of what our habitual thoughts are. So if we're on a self-doubt loop or if we're on a negative loop, perhaps we invite a gratitude practice or we listen to a compassion meditation, the loving kindness meditation. So that's kind of the third technique or tip that how meditation assists our daily life. And kind of with all that said here, I want us to just practice for about, let's do about 8 to 10 minutes together. I'll hold the time for us, meaning that I will start guiding us. I'll let us sit in silence a little, and I will gently guide us out when it's time. And yeah, that's all I'm going to say for that right now. Um, Feel free to be mindful of the tips, as in, like, maybe you're slightly more mindful of what types of thoughts are in your mind right now, um, to then perhaps be able to, after our meditation practice, write down um, another technique or another approach that you want to invite to support yourself, as in tip number three. All right. So if you are sitting somewhere, just find a comfortable seat here. And perhaps your feet are grounded down to the floor, nice and firm, or you're sitting cross legged. And now I'll invite you to either close your eyes or just let your eyes fall down to the floor a little bit open. And your palms are softly, perhaps around your thighs or your knees. And before we start changing the breath, I just want you to notice the breath, as in feel or notice your inhale, feel or notice your exhale. Do you feel it more in your belly? Do you feel it more in your chest? Or perhaps right at the tip of your nose? Now, once you've kind of assessed where you're feeling the breath move for yourself, begin to take deeper breaths in so they drop down to your belly and you feel your belly expand. And then slowly let the breath out, softening your belly. Breathing in to expand your belly. And breathing out to soften the belly. Taking about 3 or 4 more here, just like that. We're not forcing the breath. We're just allowing it to flow down to create a more expansive belly. And what that does is just brings us into a calmer state. Dropping the breath to the belly brings us into a calmer state, a more present state. And your awareness stays with your breath as it flows in and as it flows out. As it flows in and as it flows out. In the moment that you notice a thought enter, which it will, you might take a pause just to see what kind of thought it is, but then you go back into the technique of observing the inhale and the exhale. And remember that we're not trying to zero out our thoughts. Sometimes the thoughts are kind of in the background of your awareness of the breath. And so it's okay if they're kind of simultaneously happening. If the thoughts and your awareness to the breath are kind of just molding together, that's fine. We're just trying our best to stay present with the technique of our breath. And you're still with it. And still trying your best to stay with the breath. And the mind likes patterns. So if you notice the same thought just come in and come out and come in and come out, that's totally normal. The mind likes pattern. And closing off here our meditation practice. Let's take a nice long breath in through our nose, and you're gently going to hold the breath at the top. And then part your lips open and let all the breath go. And just feel your shoulders soften with that, your face soften, and take two more. Breathing in steady. Hold the breath a little bit at the top. And open mouth exhale. Final one, breathing in. And part the lips. Start to tip your chin downward towards your chest. And you can start to blink your eyes open or just gently blinking your eyes if you already had them open. And then bringing yourself back into this space. Welcome back. You might take a few moments right now to just jot down anything that you experienced, observe, a thought, a reoccurring thought. Like I said, the mind likes patterns, so you might notice that your mind goes back to the same to-do list or the same conversation you had 2 days ago or the conversation you need to have tomorrow. The mind likes to repeat and often ruminate, and we use the practice, meditation practice, to pause it. And when you want to become a bit more aware or bring it into your daily life, take the time to just write down maybe what was going on in there, what was the reoccurring thoughts, or what was your experience, and be able to support yourself with another technique, somehow else nurturing your body and your mind. And the examples that I gave were perhaps you invite a gratitude list, compassion journaling, the loving kindness meditation. So these are just kind of the tip of the iceberg of really how this can support your daily life. And we are continually wanting to support you and wanting to grow your practice. Please feel free again to email us. You can go onto our website, beyondthestudioyoga.com, and you can also check out the virtual course there. You can join the waitlist through there, and we'll also be sending through a link. And we'll be staying in touch through email, of course. Happy holidays and Happy New Year. This will be our last workshop of the year until we come into the new year, and we'll be sharing much more content and lots of more goodies for you to enjoy and to practice on your own. So thank you all so much for your time and your attention. My name is Brenda again. I'm sharing here as part of the Beyond the Studio mission and goals for us to live our yoga practices. All right, take care, everyone. Bye.